Hello, I hope you're doing great. Today we are going to continue working with Fairplay 2, the next generation of video sharing portals. Remember, it is a Blazor WebAssembly application created on .NET 5, Microsoft Azure. Yeah, .NET 5 and Microsoft Azure. And we already have a lot of functionality like uploading the videos. We started creating the building blocks for adding video comments that we are going to publish soon. And there is one thing we are going to code or to program today, and that is enabling or adding the functionality to follow other users, right? To get notifications when there are new videos uploaded, right? And things like that. So, the first thing we are going to do is, give me a second, please. Okay, and let me share my screen. So as you can see in there, that is the GitHub repository that you will be able to see it on the video description. Okay, we are going to go to issues, and currently there are no tasks created for that. We're going to milestones, and we have a milestone audience growth that already have a couple of tasks created, right? But we have nothing for followers, nor open nor closed, right? So what are we going to do? We are going to create a new task, right? This task is going to be the one for creating the database table. So we are going to create the or add the application user follower table to the database project. Right now I'm going to assign it to me. We are going to create, label is going to be enhancement and audience growth, and project is going to be for phase one. Milestone I already created under UI. This is not UI enhancement. Actually, this is audience growth. I'm sorry. There it is. So in the database project, add a new table name application user follower with the following columns. We are going to need the application user ID. This is the auto-generated ID for that table. This is going to look ugly, but application user ID. Uh, so we are not going to name it application user follower. Let's just name it user follower, user follower, user follower ID, application user ID. Actually, following application user follower, application user ID, followed application user ID. This is going to be the follower ID, and this is going to be the followed user application ID. And we are going to create the originator info interface columns, right? The other thing that we need to do is generate the data access, and create the corresponding partial class. We will see that in a second. I already configured all of that. So, okay, user follower. So now what I am going to do is I am going to Visual Studio and I'm going to create a new branch and adding user follower table. Okay. Now I am going to go to the database project, which is this one in here. DBO and tables. I am going to create a new table. And I'm going to name it user follower. That was the right name, right? Let's see, user follower, yeah. Okay, now I'm going to name this user follower ID. This is going to be a big int because this will eventually grow and we don't want to do schema changes later on. Now, let's see what's failing in here. Oh. Oh, there is a user follower already. Give me a second. Yes. I had forgotten that existed in there, so let's just verify. Add follower, okay, user follower, followed application, followed application user ID, follower application user ID, and the originator info interface columns. Okay, so actually, I can't remember where that was created. So let's just verify the functionality of the if that is being used at all in anywhere. So let's see, I went back to main and we'll go to the data access, we'll go to the models. I am going to go to the user follower class and I am going to do a right click, find all references. So it's being used in the database context and it's being used in the data access, but it's not being used in any other place. So let's check this again. Okay. So then I am going to modify this, and this is not going to be to the database project. I'm going to change this at the add user follower async method to the user service. Okay. Let's change this in the user service. Add a new method name. Add user follower async. Async. Okay. And it must receive a user follower model. Let's see if user follower model actually exists. I don't think so. Nope. And let's go to the models project just in case. No, user message. Okay. User profile. And that's going to be for users. So actually, I'm going to name it user audience. Audience. Okay. And user to create a class in that folder, user follower model, right? And we need public the Active Directory ID or the application, the user ID. Let's see what we want to get. Public long follower application user ID. And followed application. Actually, I can copy this. Okay. I forgot the public. The comment. Okay. So now I can go to the service, right? To the user service, which I don't believe it exists. There is no user service yet, so I'm going to create one. Yeah, I'm going to create a user service. User service. And here, I'm going to make it public. Public user service. This is going to receive the data access. Okay. I don't want to have this down here, and I don't like them public. This is just a preference. Okay. And public async task. Add user follower async. Which will receive the user follower model. User follower model. And we want to always force the cancellation token to be sent. Okay. So now what do we need to do? Bar follower user entity equals await is fairplay2 dot user application user where its ID equals user follower model dot follower application user ID. And actually, I could do it singular default. That's better. And let's see, singular default async. Add a namespace, and that will be it. Actually, let's move this up and just this part now down. If follower user entity equals null or is null, which is kind of the way it's been done now, throw new exception. We are going to change that to validation exception soon. User followed model does not exist. Going to copy this. Followed user entity, followed application user ID, follow user entity, and this one was wrong. So if I mark this, yeah, those should be only this, and this should be used only in the upper section. Yeah, this should be used only in the lower section, and this should be only used in here. And that's okay. Now, if everything is correct, what we want to do is await this fair play to user follower, add a sync. We are going to create a new entity, and we are going to set the two properties. The follower application user ID is going to be the follower user entity application user ID, and the followed application user ID is going to be the followed user entity application ID. And then we do the save changes async, and that will be the implementation of that method. Then we are going to create the endpoint, create the automated test, and we'll leave that part for now today. So let's see. Adding user, adding add user follow, adding implementing add user follower. Okay, I'll create that into a new branch. Then I restage that. I'll commit it. In the add user follower async method. Commit stage. I'll move this. Give me a second. Okay, and now I'll create a pull request. And in the pull request, what I will do is I'll let you know that it is for the 297. So solves 297. Implementing the add user follower async method. Okay, now I'll assign it to me because that's no one else at the moment, right? I'll add it to that, and the milestone it was actually for audience growth. And create the request. So yeah, we referenced the related issue and we didn't add anything of this at the moment, right? And now this is actually running the code checks. I'm going to merge it. And now we can go to main, and I forgot to close the issue. So this was 298. 298. Yeah, that was, and I can close this issue. And I can go back to the audience growth, and I'll create a new issue. Implement the, yeah, we better use implement. Add user follower endpoint. I'll assign it to me because I'm going to do it at once. Audience growth, enhancement, right? The project's going to be phase 1, and I already chose audience growth. So on the user controller, add a new method name, new endpoint name, add user follower. It must receive the user follower model. Okay, implement the corresponding automated test. Okay, it's going to be named add user follower. So I'm going to go to main, help pull, implement endpoint. Okay. So now I'll go to the controllers project. Controllers project is in here. I'll go to the user controller, and I am going to create a new method in here. Public async task add user follower. We receive a user follower model. User follower model. Cancellation token, cancellation token. Okay. This is going to be a post, and this is going to be authorized. For the user role. Okay, now what we need to do in here. Okay, so I'm seeing a possible warning in here that the user model or the user follower model has the ID of the user that is supposed to be following and the user who is supposed to be followed, right? However, I want this endpoint to be for the logged in user, right? Then actually I'll just modify this and we'll receive application or yeah, I don't want the class in there, do I? The thing is that if I let this to have this is as an indicator, everyone accessing the endpoint will be able to add followers to other persons, and I don't want that to happen the in here. So add user follower. So let's see if the user goes and click on the follow button, they will follow a specific ID. So add user follower. We are only going to receive in here the followed application user ID. So long followed application user ID. Now what I am going to do is await. Well, actually no. We want the ID of the user, but we only have the object ID. So I'm going to get this, and we are going to modify the other signature. Okay, await this. That we don't have a user service in here, so we'll have to inject it. And user service, right? This is complaining because I don't have it in here, because I have the project configured to treat warnings as errors. Now I already got the Azure ID, this user service, add user follower async. And what I am going to do is I am not going to send this. I am going to set, I'm never going to set this. Let's see. Let's just change the model for this. A string user follower user object ID, a string followed user object ID. Okay, and application user where this is the follower user object ID, and this is to string because that is a grid. Throw new exception. Follower user object ID does not exist. Followed user object ID. Okay. Followed user object ID. And this stays the same. Now, what I am going to set in here is follower user object ID is going to be follower user object ID is going to be the user who is login, and the followed user ID is I actually need followed user object ID. And it should give me error somewhere around here. Followed. Okay, this should be only down here. This should be only up here. Okay, I am missing something in here. This. Okay, that there in there, there in there. Okay, and yeah, the followed user object ID equals followed application user ID. And I am missing something, the cancellation token. Huh. Why? Yes, it's not a long, it's a string. Huh. Should be string, let's see.